I'm really inspired by how spirituality plays a huge part in, uh, putting all the pieces together. And it doesn't act in isolation. It's all interconnected somehow. And so I think having that sort of mindset going into different spaces, I think, is really important when we are working with our communities, whether they're Pacific or not. I think we're all spiritual beings in some way.
Talofa lava, everyone. Welcome to What's In Your Kete. I'm Taylor, and joining me this week is my friend Michael Tuala, a mental health advocate and youth worker based in West Auckland, Tāmaki Makaurau. Mike and I caught up recently and discussed his advocacy work, our trip together to Japan as part of the Ship for World Youth program, and much more. Have a listen to our talanoa as we unpack what's in Mike's kete.
Malo soifua, maua, talofa lava, o loo ingoa, o Michael Tuala, but people call me Mike. But yeah, I was born and raised here in West Auckland, Tāmaki Makaurau, with my siblings. So there are six of us siblings. I'm number two of the six. And my parents, and we're we've always been based out in West Auckland. Uh, my my whakapapa, so I trace back to the beautiful island of Samoa, and both my mum and my dad's side. So my mum comes from the villages of Vailoa and Alesa, and then my dad is from Leova'a. And yeah, it was really nice. I actually went over to Samoa a couple of years back and with my siblings, and we kind of just did a bit of, travel around and got to visit the villages that my parents grew up in, and it was super special. But they came over back in sort of the 60s, 70s, and yeah, I guess this is where sort of home is for myself and my siblings. And currently, what I'm doing is I'm working as a KED advisor. So KED stands for Community Action, Youth and Drugs. And our team sits within Te Kaunihira or Tāmaki Makaurau, Auckland Council. And so, yeah, I've been in this space coming up 8 years now. So I've been in my role for 8 years. And yeah, that's kind of sort of where I'm at the moment.
Awesome, thank you, Mikey. And yeah, just wanted to kind of acknowledge the space that you're in and the mahi that you're doing. And I wanted to ask, in terms of the advocacy space that you're in now, how did you end up in this space? What influenced you to look at mental health from a youth perspective? Was this something that you've been passionate about, or was it, yeah, like your parents that influenced you? Yeah, keen to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, definitely. I think mental health and advocacy was always something that was quite intrinsic in terms of what I was really interested in pursuing. I think growing up in a family where, uh, the importance of family, the importance of service, and having faith, I think, really shaped kind of the direction in which I wanted to lead after high school. And so while I was at high school, I got involved with a youth organization called Logos. So Logos is a Marist youth organization, and they are based in all kind of schools doing faith formation and leadership development. And I guess it was there that I really kind of saw, I guess, my passion for working with young people or working in the youth sector. And so I guess it was from there that then I looked into study options at university after high school and came across a degree that majored in youth work. And yeah, from there, I sort of never looked back, and I got in my first job out of university was at a youth alcohol and drug residential home. So it really sort of, I really got chucked into the deep end straight away. But I haven't left the mental health and addiction sector. So yeah, I think it's for me. It was kind of felt like I was, or and still am, fulfilling my purpose in terms of working in this space of mental health and addictions, supporting young people.
And I think as well, yeah, just wanted to acknowledge your work in that space, and you've done some incredible mahi, which um, very recently included you going down to Parliament, I saw, to present on alcohol harm and intersections on mental health. And I was wondering if you could share a little bit more around that process for that, please.
Yeah, definitely. So I had the absolute pleasure of talking about some of my mahi down in Parliament. And I guess when I was first approached to consider being on a panel and presenting, live down in Parliament, I was very, I guess, shaken and quite doubtful that I would do a good job. But I guess through the conversations that I had with my team, some of my mentors, I kind of really just, thought, hey, I am capable of doing this sort of stuff. And even though it was my first time kind of presenting at that scale, um, yeah, I thought it was such a neat opportunity to just highlight some of the mahi that I do, particularly on the front line, working with our frontline services and engaging, in that community aspect. I think often what's missing at those sorts of events is like real live or real lived experience of our communities and having representation of youth voice and community voice. So it was really nice to represent that and take it to the panel discussion. Yeah.
Well, congratulations, and I can imagine that that's a big opportunity, to be able to speak in that forum, and kind of going off the advocacy work that you do. I also am keen to hear, from your perspective, is there a particular difference in terms of, you know, being Samoan or being Pasifika, the way that you might do your advocacy work compared to your colleagues, or is it kind of a kind of a similar model that you guys will use in terms of community outreach or in that kind of realm? Yeah.
That's a really good question. I mean, for myself, when I think about who I am and what I bring into these spaces, often I might be the only person of color in the spaces that I work in. Um, and so that is something that I'm always very mindful of is how do I bring my full self and how do I represent my culture or who I am in these often mainstream spaces. And so for me it comes down to some of those foundational values of me being Samoan, the importance of faith, the importance of service, the importance of family, these kind of foundational values that really ground me in who I am. And more recently, I've been leaning more into like the importance of spirituality. I think is often something that's overlooked in terms of our mahi, but I guess I'm really inspired by how spirituality plays a huge part in putting all the pieces together. And it doesn't act in isolation. It's all interconnected somehow. And so I think having that sort of mindset going into different spaces, I think, is really important when we are working with our communities, whether they're Pacific or not. I think we're all spiritual beings in some way. And so it's about how we can acknowledge that and help to process s- some of that trauma and really empower like healing in the community because often when we talk about alcohol and drugs that's it's a very heavy topic and often there is trauma behind some of that stuff and so it's about how we can roll the falla out or roll the mat out and create a safe environment so that our young people or our community can heal. So, yeah, I think it's just having some of those practices or some of those foundational kind of values uh, that I think are really important for me being Pacific and how I can bring that, like, how do I bring that into different spaces?
And I like the fact that you touched on spirituality itself and that kind of maybe holistic approach to mental well-being. What you mentioned earlier as well, in terms of your siblings, you're number two of six, is that right?
Yes, yes, that's correct.
In terms of your siblings, I'm just kind of keen to know, are they themselves also involved in the mental health or advocacy space, or yeah, like what are your siblings kind of doing? Are they in a similar kind of realm as
I
you?
guess we've all kind of taken our own different, avenues after high school. But I guess the majority of us have stayed in that sort of social services and health space. So it's really awesome to see, yeah, some of my siblings involved in, working in health and nutrition for Pacific peoples. And my other sibling kind of more involved in supporting uh, people, to go on to the benefit, or yeah. So there are sort of, I guess, aspects of work that do cross over into that health and social service kind of space.
Also kind of wanting to throw back a little bit further into your childhood as well. I mean, you've mentioned the importance of faith and of service in our communities, and wanted to ask, for you growing up, was that something that your parents kind of instilled in you from an early age? Were you growing up in kind of youth groups, or yeah, talk to us a little bit around what your childhood was like out west. Yeah.
Like I mentioned before, I think faith was kind of one of the key pillars that really helped to guide us as children. And I would remember that every night we would come together and do family kind of devotion and family prayers. And even though I was so little at that time, I can still remember kind of that practice. And interestingly enough, like, we've brought that practice back to our family, and so we I'm still living at home. We all come together every night. Well, we try to, when we're not busy, to come together and just um, yeah, do some karakia, some prayer, and just catch up. And I think that's kind of what's really kept us strong together. And um, yeah, I think for my parents, like, they really helped to nurture a lot of that curiosity and a lot of that, coming together as a family. And so, faith, as mentioned, was really key, but also physical activity. So, my parents got us into lots of different kinds of sports, karate, kickboxing, athletics. Like, we did the whole kind of lot of different sports. And I think that was a good way to, what's it called, outlet, like like an outlet for us, a healthy outlet. And so, yeah, every day we would be busy with doing that. So I think what they tried to do was provide, a real holistic support system for us as kids growing up. And that's something that I'd forever be grateful to my parents for, was being able to provide, that holistic support for us as children. Yeah.
Nice. And I think that kind of shows within, I've known you for a while, and you've always kind of had a very holistic, very kind of warm aura about you, I guess, which has, been very approachable, and one of the reasons why I wanted to kind of sit down with you this evening. And I think kind of touching on that as well, you kind of talked about your foundations, but wanting to look more into some of the leadership opportunities that you've been involved with, and particularly there is one that I want to touch on, but kind of in pre-2020 years, did you get up to any kind of interesting opportunities or leadership initiatives? Yeah, before COVID.
Well, yes, definitely. I You know, and I guess that's where I had the opportunity to cross paths with yourself, and be part of the Ship for World Youth program. I think for me that was probably like the first kind of official leadership sort of program that I had been a part of, and one that really just sort of opened my eyes to the world. Really, um, I mean, we didn't know that in 2020, that was like COVID was going to happen, but before that, for me, I was just like, wow, like there is just so much to the world that I haven't seen. And it was just so infectious. Like I just wanted to just, share it with everyone at that time, and just talk about what an amazing opportunity it was to travel the world, and to be able to connect with so many different countries as part of this leadership program, and really just understand like the different worldviews. Uh, yeah, so prior to COVID happening, I would say that that was probably, one of my highlights in terms of leadership development and my journey and flourishing, because, yeah, being part of SWI, as they call it, really kind of opened up that international door of travel and also of global issues.
And I do want to touch a little bit more in depth around SWI very soon, but I think kind of looking at mental health, but from your own personal perspective, you've talked about flourishing internationally and meeting all of these incredible people and traveling the world, and then, you know, coming home obviously to what the pandemic would have been at the time. We, of course, had no idea, but for the listeners, uh, would you be able to kind of talk us through what that was like for you? Coming back home from this amazing journey and then to go straight into COVID lockdown, and you know, at least from the world's perspective, going through something that's life changing, I guess, for arguably all the wrong reasons with what COVID brought. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that time was just such a unprecedented time, hey, and no one was kind of sure of what was happening really in the world. And I remember when we were on ship, like lost in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, like we were getting messages saying that, there was this thing called COVID happening in our lands. And um, yeah, so there was just so much kind of uncertainty about that. And so when we landed back in New Zealand, I think it was literally a few days after we landed that the announcement was made that we were going to be in a full lockdown. And I just remember being quite shocked, that something like this would happen to the world. And yeah, I remember just having that feeling of kind of like, oh, like I'm on this real high of like just finished traveling the world, and I wanted to share this special gift with everyone. And then the reality really hit in, and yeah, I remember those first few months, say, of having to work from home, having to work from your room or work from the car. Like everything was just all so unfamiliar, and I guess, yeah, it was just so unfamiliar. And what kind of got me through that was really just having like a supportive team around me, a supportive work team, um, keeping our family kind of practice, like what we were sort of doing, during the day, and just making sure that like we all supported each other. And yeah, it was just really trying to navigate a very, uh, yeah, a very like interesting time, eh? Mm.
Yeah, very, very similarly for me as well. Coming back from SWI, and you have you meet all these incredible people, and you have almost, it feels like the world at your fingertips, and then you come back home and you can't even see friends or extended family outside your bubble, and just the uncertainty that brought at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. But like, I mean, I still stay connected in with our friends from all across the world, and it's really nice to have that sense of, I guess, like global connection. knowing that you have friends in South America and Europe and the Middle East and Asia. It's so reassuring to know that you have connections across the world. And say, for example, when there was a natural disaster happening in Sri Lanka, I had some friends that lived there, and I was able to message them and ask them if they were all okay. And yeah, like things just became much more relevant at a global level for me. And I think that's kind of what I took. Well, one of the things I took from Swai was being able to, um, yeah, like have responsibility and care for our world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad. And I wanted to touch on Swai, but going back to the beginning of your journey, can you talk us a little bit through how did Swai end up on your radar in the first place? And have you had other family members or friends that have been on Swai in the past, or yeah, what made you want to get involved in the first place?
Yeah, it was funny. I was at work. I was in a work setting, and one of my colleagues, I'm sure she won't mind me mentioning her name, Melissa Lilo, a staunch youth advocate and someone who has been working in this space for many years now. She was kind of talking about this experience, and I was just kind of like, oh, like that just sounds too good to be true, to be honest. Um, but she was like, "Oh, I was on this ship, and they took us across the world, and we got to talk about global issues and whatnot." And I guess it was there that I was just like, "Wow, like it's so cool to know that something like that exists in this world, and that there is opportunity for rangatahi to be able to have a voice, at that platform." So it was through a colleague of mine that had recommended that I put my application in and just kind of go for it. So that's what I did, and yeah, fortunately, I was successful.
Looking at the actual program, I'm keen to hear what your thoughts were about the actual places that we went to because for me, when I was looking at where we were going, I was like, holy smokes, like this was, it'd be almost like a dream, in itself. And so, just wanted to hear like what your thoughts were. Have you traveled much before or, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I've only just sort of stayed within kind of the New Zealand and wider, Oceania kind of area. So, um, yeah, to be able, like I said, it really just opened my eyes to kind of the international stage of travel. And like you said, it felt like it was a dream to be traveling. So, for those who weren't aware, we had started off in Japan, and then we made our way out to Hawaii, and then over to Mexico or Mexico. And then we did a 360. So we went back through to Hawaii and then back to Japan. So yeah, to be able to like sail across the Pacific Ocean in itself, like I still reflect about that, and I'm like, wow, like did we really travel across, this vast ocean, to get to Hawaii and to Mexico? And these are countries that I always dreamed of wanting to go to as a little kid. So like to touch the soil and the land of those places, like it was just so special for me. And um, yeah, I just loved every single moment of it, and I tried to sort of make sure that while I was there, like I would just really sink it all in. Um, so yeah, it was just such a special, like surreal kind of feeling. And even coming back to Japan and then doing like a homestay, we actually went up to uh, Yamagata, and it was up in sort of the snow. So like we kind of were able to experience different climates of Japan. And Taylor and I, we had the opportunity of being buddies together and having a homestay family together. So yeah, it was just such a special kind of unique experience.
And I think that, you kind of sum up the process so well. Like, I think being able to be in Mexico, to be in Japan and Hawaii as well, and particularly except for Hawaii, we had delegations from Japan and from Mexico who were able to, tell us in the weeks leading up to us going to Hawaii or excuse me to Mexico or coming back to Japan about things around the culture and the language and things, which is so cool to learn. Um, but you also touched on a really good point, which I was going to lead into next about our homestay in Yamagata and wanting to kind of look a little bit more around that because this Y program itself is incredible. Like we're on the ship, the Nippon Maru, and there's hundreds of people on the ship at any one time, and then you go from being around all these people to being in a homestay, and it's a more intimate space. And wanting to hear from you, Mikey, what was that like for you, kind of going from the kind of loud and kind of socially engaged part of SWI to go into a homestay and kind of being a little bit more relaxed or a little bit more slower paced with how
Mm.
things were at that point in the program.
Yeah, for me, I thought it was a bit of a culture shock, kind of being in a very sort of high intense space where you couldn't get off the ship because you were, in the middle of the ocean. So being in a space with, like you said, hundreds of people, it felt quite intense at times. And then to be able to be staying in like a family's home, like that was just wow, like it was just very intimate. And I think for me, it really kind of gave me insight into like the life of a family in Japan. And I guess it just made me really appreciate, what that like what life looks like for a young family and how we're able to experience kind of different worlds. And so, yeah, I think for me, like what it was like was it was just really nice to hang out in a town that wasn't populated. Obviously we did a lot in Tokyo, but to be up in sort of a more rural town, it was really nice to kind of yeah feel more connected into the environment. Uh, and then to be able to connect in with our families, I think that was such a special part of it, and to really just get insight into what they do kind of on a daily. Yeah.
Yeah, and I loved it personally. I mean, I might even go so far as to say that I liked Yamagata a little bit more than Tokyo. I mean, of course, Tokyo is amazing, but
Oh,
um,
interesting.
there
Yeah.
was some. I think there was something a little bit more serene about it. I mean, we got the chance to visit the temple up in Yamagata, Yamadera, I think it's
Yes.
called. The temple up in the mountain, and that was the first time I had ever seen a snow at all. And just I remember that feeling of being up there, and yeah, it was something else. Like that's one of those things where you have to be there to experience. But yeah, just want to acknowledge our host family. I believe that's Ken and Mariko Tanaka and their children as well. But yeah, me and Mikey,
Yes.
we're both in the same homestay family, and it actually gave me a chance to get to know you a little bit more, Mikey, which was really cool. But
Yeah. And I guess if I ever plan to go back to Japan, I would really love to go back to Yamagata and see our host family and just reconnect in with them. It'd be great to see the two kids and see them all growing up. Yeah, no, it was a very special experience.
I can't imagine. I mean, they're probably going to be taller than me now, to be honest. But Alan,
Oh, yeah.
wanting to kind of close out on Swide, I just wanted to clarify if you draw your mind back, do you remember about the letter groups that we were in by chance?
Yes, I was in letter group F, Feel the Flow.
Yes.
Yep.
Can you remind me or
That
not?
was our
Were you,
slogan.
um, in terms of your letter group, were you in the same group as Paddy by chance? Because if so, was he in your group? And I just want to ask.
Yes, he was.
No,
Yes.
because I have this funny memory of sorts around when we were on the program. We were in these leader groups as a way to kind of mix and mingle, and of course, we'd have social events and time outside of the program while we're on the ship to meet with other people. But we had these leader groups where you would stick with that group during the majority of the SWI program, and you would kind of do learnings together. But we had this sports day, I remember, where they had different activities around the ship where you would compete against different leader groups. And particularly, I remember this time that we had a tug of war that took place on the upper deck, and we had our letter group, my letter group, which was G, versus F, I guess, which was your guys' crew. And I remember particularly because there was you and there was Paddy, and to be quite fair, you guys are quite strong, buff individuals. And so, we were kind of looking at our group, and not to say that we didn't have, well, not to say that anyone wasn't fit, so to speak, but when you have Paddy, who the strongman from Scotland, I think, and then of course yourself, Mikey, being quite a buff individual as well, and you've talked about doing kickboxing and whatnot, and we were looking at your team and thinking, holy smokes, like we've got to compete with that and tug of war. And so I remember particularly just seeing you guys kind of strategize and kind of having Paddy at the back and you at the front, and we were kind of looking and we had Zuga at the front. If you remember Zuga being a very
Yes, I do.
tall, lean,
Yes.
kind of Kenyan, and as soon as we kind of grabbed the rope and we were like, yeah, we got this, and as soon as the whistle blew, the rope went straight out of our hands, and Zuga
Yeah.
went flying across the line there.
Yes, no, no, no. I definitely remember that. That was yeah, that was pretty funny. But yeah, I guess it was cool to highlight different sorts of strengths, say, across our different teams. Yeah.
But I think it was the little things like that which made the program such a great experience. And I know that Aotearoa New Zealand does very frequently attend these programs. So hopefully, maybe some of our listeners who are younger will have the opportunity to participate in one of the next SWI delegations that go in the future. But kind of segueing into the kind of same realm of travel, I know that you and your siblings were in Europe last year, which looked really exciting. And was wondering if you could, yeah, share a little bit around what you guys got up to over there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess this kind of really came because my youngest sister, so the baby of the family, she was turning 21 last year. And so we were kind of like, oh, like what could we do to really sort of help celebrate her birthday and celebrate, the milestone of the baby of the family. And it was always on our bucket list to do a siblings trip over to Europe because for those who don't know, my older sister, Amanda, she lives in France with her husband. So, I guess that was what made it much more easier for us was because they lived in France, we had a base over there. And so for the rest of us, I mean, there were five of us, and then one of my other sister's partners came with us as well. uh, yeah, we were just like, okay, well, if we're going to make it happen, let's just do it now. And let's just book our annual leave and book our tickets and go from there. And so, yeah, it was kind of, it sort of all happened ad hoc, really. It just sort of, we were just like, well, these are some dates that we could choose to take some time off, which was over about a month. We had all taken annual leave from our work, and then once we kind of got our leave approved, yeah, we kind of saved up for our tickets, and then bought our tickets, and then we're like, okay, we're coming to Europe, we're coming to France. So yeah, it was a real surreal experience, and one trip that, yeah, I'll never forget because it was with the siblings, and we were able to travel across Europe, which was super special. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. And can you talk to us a little bit about like where did you go to? I mean, of course, France, but did you travel to Spain or like kind of like somewhere close by?
Yeah. Well, my sister Amanda and her husband Abraham, they live in a small kind of rural town called Cast, and it's kind of like central south of France. So it was interesting because it was actually closer to Barcelona than it was to Paris, which I thought was quite interesting. So my older sister had booked a big family van, and we made the road trip down to Barcelona in Spain. We, did a few trips across south of Spain. Oh, sorry, south of France. We went over to the UK and went to London for a few days. We went across Italy as well and stayed in Milan and went to Rome and yeah, like it was just such like a surreal experience. And yeah, if I were to encourage you to do a trip like that, it is very much worth it to sort of take time off to really just soak up the world and just experience the world. Um, Especially, I guess, for us living in New Zealand, New Zealand just feels so far away from the world, but to sort of be in the heart of, France and to travel across some of the surrounding countries, I thought was a real special place to be. So, yeah, our activities were varied. So we did lots of kind of water activities, did a bit of hiking, obviously tried out new food restaurants, explored the cities, and yeah, just kind of whatever what was on offer for that specific city. So lots of cathedrals, and it was just so beautiful, eh?
The only other thing that came to mind for me instantly was like, how did you guys navigate the different language barriers? Because I'm thinking like, oh, you're going from French to Spanish, Italian. Like, did you have?
Yeah.
How did you guys kind of manage with the locals, communication and everything?
Yeah, I guess that's where body language was very key and very important. So there were parts, or there are times when we would just have to, use our body to kind of action what we wanted to do. Um, I guess we had to sort of use Google Translate in some spaces. But overall, like the people there were quite open to, minimal English being spoken. So I guess it also helped that my older sister, has lived there for a bit, so she kind of knew some of the basic French, and so yeah, we were able to sort of navigate doing that. But yeah, it definitely was a little bit tricky at times to do that, and I often got mistaken as Spanish or Arab, or yeah, it was quite funny.
I think it'd be quite interesting, just to kind of explain to locals. I mean, like what your background is in terms of like, imagine trying to explain. I mean, and of course I'm generalizing here, but trying to explain to, someone in a small town in Italy, for instance, where New Zealand is or where Samoa is, for instance, and they'd probably shrug their shoulders and be like, "Don't know where that is."
Yeah.
Funny.
Yeah, no, we definitely got that quite a lot in terms of people asking if they thought we were like a rugby team or they thought that we were, part of the Olympics because obviously the Olympics was, had just happened in Paris. So yeah, it was quite funny to sort of, yeah, be part of that.
Just kind of bringing our talanoa to the close or to the end of our time together. One thing which I am keen to hear, and you have touched on it a little bit, but for you, how do you kind of celebrate being Samoan and incorporating your fa'a Samoa into day to day life? Yeah, keen to hear a little bit about that.
Samoa is it to me it offers like it's a way of being or a way of living in the context of society. And so for me, like what I think about are some of those grounding values. So, um, yeah, like I mentioned, respect, family, faith, humility. And so it's about how do I incorporate those values into my everyday life? And tautua, being of service, I think is one of the biggest ones for me is how do I um, act as a servant in my leadership. and how do I sort of practice that not only in my family but also in my work that I do. And so, for me, incorporating Samoa through tautua, through service, and through having that deep sense of spirituality, relationship to God, I think is really how I'm able to build on those relationships with our community, and be able to serve my family and to serve the community. So yeah, I think that's kind of sort of how I interpreted, uh, how I incorporate my Samoan kind of culture into everyday living. And I think it's such a beautiful thing, hey, like when we look at how culture is practiced and celebrated. And yeah, it's just I'm always learning something new about my culture, whether it's through some of the stories that are passed down from my generations, or whether it's just having a conversation at work and someone's, talking about um, cultural protocols, or yeah, it's just such an interesting way of doing things, and so it's something that I'm still really keen to explore and figure out how I can grow, grow in that space.
Bless. Well, thank you for sharing. And, kind of looking at everything that you've shared, I mean, I think it speaks volumes through the work that you're doing already in terms of service to the community. Um, and yeah, so just kind of moving into the end of our cordial now, I just wanted to pass it to you to kind of close us out in terms of sharing it, if you've got any kind of opportunities or any kind of events that you're working on, or just wanted to provide you the space to kind of talk a little around what's next for you in the next wee while, and any kind of last messages you wanted to share with the listeners.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a lot that's coming up that I'm really looking forward to. I didn't mention, but I'm part of a network called Pacifica, which is looking at championing Pacific youth development practitioners or youth workers across New Zealand. And so I've just recently taken on a part-time role in delivering that across the Auckland region. So how we can support and uplift our Pacific youth workers in their practice, and ensuring that they feel, connected to their mahi, given, the volatile environment that we live in, with slashings of funding,
Mm.
cuts of programming and all that. Like, how can we create some of these safe spaces for our youth practitioners, those who are engaging with our young people? How can we ensure that their kete is filled and supported? So that's something that I'm very passionate about, and we're currently organizing a couple of events to bring the network together of Pacific youth development practitioners. And so, yeah, that's kind of what's been on top of my list at the moment, is organizing a couple of events there. And then obviously I, have got my other projects on the go as well. So lots of stuff happening in the sport and alcohol space, mental health, FASD. Yeah, so quite a lot. But personally, I'm hoping to also do a bit of travel maybe later on this year with the siblings. We haven't confirmed a location yet, but yeah, there might be something coming later in the year. So definitely something to look forward to.
Manuia whawhitai. Thank you, Mikey, for coming on this week and sharing your story with us. To our listeners, we appreciate you tuning in. Thank you so much, and make sure to come back again soon for another episode of What's in Your Kete.